Good evening. We're starting tonight in Altadena at some of these roadblocks. We just got word that they are starting to repopulate certain parts of Altadena. And we've seen residents going up to the roadblocks trying to get in. And unfortunately, this roadblock right here, the damage down Lake Street, which is the main street around here, is still too devastating, too dangerous to allow people back there. But there are certain communities here along Altadena, the outskirts of the fire, that they have started to reopen. The good news is today the winds were not as bad as we expected. So the fire has been burning in on itself, but it has not yet spread at all, which is very, very good news. And today, so many of those critical airdrops. Meanwhile, we know the investigation continues here in Altadena, up in the foothills, on how this fire started. The Palisades fire is still under investigation. There are some new details coming out today, and we're going to start off with Liz Schwartz.
Tonight, fire-ravaged Los Angeles yet again on edge as Southern California braces for another extreme wind event. City officials urging residents to be prepared to evacuate as the National Weather Service issues the same rare highest-level threat advisory that fueled the devastating Palisade and Eaton fires.
We are taking an aggressive lean-forward posture, and the LAFD has staffed all available resources, strategically placing fire patrols and engines in the unimpacted high fire risk areas in the city.
In the past week, 60 miles across LA County has been scorched. NBC's Ellison Barber embedded with CAL FIRE to see the conditions from the air.
Air efforts are a critical part of this firefight, and you see it here. Teams are attacking these fires and hotspots like this one from the air every chance they get.
And now growing scrutiny about how the fires started. This video, taken by Altadena resident Pedro Rojas, shows a large blaze directly beneath electrical towers in the early minutes of the Eaton fire. This coming as at least 2 new lawsuits have been filed targeting power company SoCal Edison, alleging negligence for in part failing to de-energize that transmission line, which the suit says sparked the deadly fire.
What's the proof that you're pointing to that this started at the transmission line?
In our complaint, we allege videos, photographs, eyewitness testimony, and of course, we know that they have tools like PSPS, Public Safety Power Shutoff, that they could have used and chose not to.
Evangelina Iglesias is part of the suit, a longtime FedEx worker who lost her Altadena home in the Eaton fire.
I wish they would have shut everybody's power off earlier in the day if they knew that there was going to be 60 to 80-mile gusts of wind.
In a statement, the utility saying it understands lawsuits have been filed and will review them, and points to the fact that the cause of the fire continues to be under investigation. In the Palisades fire, officials saying they're not ruling out arson as a cause, as the ATF now leads the investigation. Tonight, with new hurricane-force winds on its back, Southern California hoping the ferocious flames stay away.
And we're all praying that. And Liz joins us now from Altadena as well. Liz, the winds were not quite as bad as we were expecting. A lot of sighs of relief out here. From the people that you spoke with today, are they on edge as we go into tonight?
You know, Gadi, I feel like we're all on edge. Everybody in LA is on edge right now, right? I think a week ago when this fire ignited, we all had an awakening that it could happen to any of us in any neighborhood here. So I think, yeah, people are nervous. I think it's certainly a positive news that we didn't see as intense of a wind event today as we could have. But as you know, the National Weather Service is saying that we're really not out of the woods, and we could see those strong winds into the night and tomorrow. But really, even though this area in Altadena is under a red flag warning, so there is that fire danger, it's really the areas to the north of LA and west of LA that are forecasted to maybe see the most intense, dangerous winds. Of course, we'll see if that pans out. But Gadi, as well, millions of people right now across the region are dealing with the air quality issue. They are under what's called a wind-blown ash and dust alert, where basically officials are saying that the winds are going to take this dust and ash and make it travel and spread across the area. So everybody around Southern California is basically being told to stay inside if you can, as much as you can, roll your windows down, and if you're going to be outside for an extended period of time, wear a mask.
And Liz, we're in this very difficult period of time, this kind of purgatory of time in which we're showing these images. The press is allowed back because of the law here in California, and we report from the evacuation zone, but people who lived in those areas that evacuated, they are still not allowed back because of all the danger. I know for a lot of people who haven't been able to check on their homes, there are damage maps online that show which homes are destroyed, which are safe in both the Eaton and the Palisades fire. A little bit difficult to navigate through some of those, though, but I think our colleague Dana Griffin helped someone find their home on the Eaton map, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit earlier, and I think we have a little bit of video. Let's play that really fast.
Oh my goodness. No, you got him too deep. I want to know what. Yeah, that's it. That's my home right there, where that dot is.
So your home wasn't in the fire?
Oh, look at where it was compared to where the fire was. Thank you, Jesus.
Dana's face says it all. I mean, there is good news out there for people that are coming across that. But again, it is a little bit difficult to navigate. For people that are waiting for news, what do they need to know about this resource?
Yeah, Gadi, isn't it just crazy to think that that man had to wait a week to find out the state of his home? He's waited 7 days to know that his home is standing. I can't even imagine going through that. So one of the main ones of these interactive maps that folks are using is the Los Angeles County Fire Department map. They have put this out. If you just Google it, LA Fire Department map, interactive map, homes, fires, you'll find it. Basically, you can put in an address and it will pop up and tell you the state of a home. So if it's red, that means more than 50% destruction. If it's orange, it's a little bit less. If it's yellow, it's a little bit less. If it's a different color, it means it's there. So you can really get a sense, house by house, what the damage and destruction might be. But they also caution and say that they're still assessing all of this area. It's a huge area, as you know, so it's not 100% done yet. It's not 100% accurate yet. So just take it for what it is. But it is a great resource for all those people who are desperate to get home and see the state of their home.
Yeah, we hope that happens so soon. It's got to be so frustrating. And Liz, just comparing notes out here, we don't have concrete numbers as to when people are going to be allowed back in places like here along Lake Street. We're hearing that they are doing weeks' work in a matter of days here, but it's still, it did not seem like that was going to happen this week. Are you hearing anything on what a timeline could look like, or is it still too soon?
Just like you, I haven't heard anything. I don't know. It's hard to say when they're going to allow people back in. And I think there's just concern because we keep getting these wind events. So then it keeps picking up. And it's just it's just hard to wrap your head around how much destruction there is. And there's just so many nails, right, Gadi? You walk onto any of these homes and there's giant nails sticking up. It's truly dangerous. So I understand why officials are taking these precautions to make sure when people do come back, it's actually safe for them.
Yeah, it's nails, it's electrical lines, it's gas lines. I mean, the other day we were on a street. All of a sudden we started hearing popping, and we realized that was ammunition that I think was in a safe. I hope was in a safe that was starting to pop off, that had melted or gotten supercharged, superheat in that fire. So just dangers abound. Liz Kreutz, thanks again for your reporting, and thanks for joining us tonight. And joining us now is trial attorney Rachel Fisay. So, Rachel, thanks so much for being with us. Lawsuits against power companies here in California, that is a thing that we've seen in the past, and those lawsuits have resulted in some massive action. What are you seeing with these two fires here in Los Angeles from your perspective?
Well, right now, the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire are differently situated. Right now, it appears that the Eaton fire, they're honing in on Southern California Edison as a very real potential cause to this fire. There will be state investigations. There will be findings. The Edison will do their own investigation, and lawyers will also do their own investigation as it relates to causation that could lead to liability for so much destruction. The Palisades fire, on the other hand, is less clear as to what has started. There's still a lot of investigation and speculation that it could have been arson or a firework or something that's really unrelated to a utility company. The lawsuit filed in the Palisades fire is different than saying there is a cause to the fire. It has been filed against DWP, and they are saying it's because there was not enough water to put out the fire. So it's a very different situation as to the lawsuits at this time.
And Rachel, to be clear, the source of the fires, including the Eaton fire, as we just said, that's still under investigation. However, this day and age, like so many of the investigations that we see, start on social media. And we are seeing video that they've been citing in that lawsuit. You've seen it right there. And it's interesting. It is right above the ridge here. We went to go check it out a little bit earlier. We did see investigators down, or at least people in yellow jackets down around that area today, seeming to inspect the ground. But is that video, are these pieces of, I don't know if they're evidence, but are these pieces of video that are posted on social media going to become strong pieces of evidence against potentially Southern California Edison here?
That's a very real possibility. That's what's happening in this day and age, is that people have these cameras and they're catching events as they happen. So there will be months of investigation as to this cause, and as to state and county findings, months and months of investigation. And then there will be investigation by SoCal Edison themselves. So finding the exact causation may be difficult, but when you look at the pictures, that will go into the investigation, that will be evidence as it relates to causation.
Yeah, pictures, and not only pictures. I mean, I've seen so many postings with timestamps, documentation. This is something that affected so many people, and it is fascinating to see so many people with their phones documenting what happened as it unfolded. Rachel Fassé, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns joins us now with more on what kind of wind event we're going to expect tonight. Bill, hoping you have some good news for us. What are you tracking?
Gadi, we're halfway through this dangerous wind situation. If we could just get another 18 hours with no new fire starts, I think we can get through this without, lots of structures being burned or any structures being burned. But, that magical question is, will we get any new fire starts late tonight, early tomorrow morning when these winds begin to pick up and kick again up to near hurricane strength? So that's why we still have this PDS in place, particularly dangerous situation from Ventura all the way over to San Fernando and back up here towards Pyramid Lake and along I-5. This is where the winds will be the highest tonight. Relative humidity is very low, as we all know, and it hasn't rained in 8 months. So the wind gusts currently, we're about 30 to 50 mile per hour range. This is more LA County, not in downtown. Look, 11 in downtown. Near the Palisades, we're gusting a little bit more now to 32. It'll be a little windier tonight near that fire than it was last night. The Eaton fire, the wind shouldn't be that strong tonight, maybe in that 20 to 30 mile per hour range. So if we get any new fires in Angeles National Forest or heading towards Ventura County, that's the areas of concern. So as we fast forward through the night, we do see the red popping up on here. 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts are likely, isolated, getting up there towards 70. Last night we had some gusts heading up towards maybe like 80 miles per hour. So it won't be as high of a peak, but last night we didn't have any new fires for them. So we have to wait and see what that materializes. And then once we get through tomorrow afternoon, the winds all come down. Red flag warnings will be dropped right around noon or so. And then an onshore flow tries to develop towards the weekend. And that would be a godsend for the firefighters and everyone. Everyone can finally catch their breath. We get 4 days of kind of light winds. And the air quality, because all the hot spots have been put out, there's not a lot of smoke in the air. The air quality is almost normal in LA. It's a little moderate, but it's nowhere near what we were right after those fires. So we're continuing to add up all the numbers. And, this is the sad part of this reality now. The Eaton fire is now 5th on the all-time list for fatalities for California's deadliest. And they do think that number is going to go up. Of course, the Camp Fire, 85 back in 2018. And structures lost in California history. The Eaton fire is now number 2 behind the Camp Fire. The Palisades fire is roughly number 4. So you combine these two together and, it's almost as bad as the Camp Fire. Pretty amazing stuff. So when will it rain again? That's what we need. And until it does, we're going to continue to watch the chances for, more additional fires. This is the top 20 largest fires in California history. The acreage burned. Notice how, all of it's recently, 2021, 2020. And as we went through 2000 to 2019, these are all those years. I mean, look at compared to just the last 4 to 5 years. We are getting bigger fires than ever. And that does have to do with a piece of it because of climate change. And Gadi, here's your forecast for the rainfall, 0. And then as we look towards next week, it's a little bit cooler than normal in Southern California. But once again, bone dry in the west. So unfortunately, the next time the winds come up, we're probably going to do this all over again.
We're praying for rain out here. Bill Cairns, thank you. And something we're hearing a lot from people out here is problems with insurance. Either some people don't have it, they couldn't get it, they had their policy dropped months before these fires swept through. And last year, we saw State Farm alone end coverage for over 70,000 homes across California, citing potential catastrophes as the reason. And they're not the only ones. There were several other major insurance companies that either paused their coverage here in California or got rid of it altogether. So now we're left with over 12,000 structures completely destroyed, and a lot of people wondering, how are they going to rebuild? Joining us now is Josh Flagg. He is a real estate agent. You might recognize him as the star of $1 Million Listing in Los Angeles. Thanks so much for being with us. I know you live out here in Los Angeles. You were seeing all of this firsthand. I do want to ask you, with all of your expertise, like, how do you see the fires impacting California's insurance market and real estate market?
Well, I mean, look, this just started, less than a week ago. It's too soon to tell, but what I can tell you is, I mean, there's, in terms of finding these people houses, there is going to be a just line around the block. There is a line around the block for every house right now, trying to get these homes leased. I mean, there's little inventory, and there's so many people that need homes right now. And then there's just a ton of price gouging. I mean, people are just tripling their prices on leases. And mark my words, it hasn't happened yet, but give it another 24 to 36 hours, the DRE, or the Department of Real Estate, will step in and will limit that from happening because people are just taking advantage. In terms of insurance,
I mean, just to jump in on that, like triple, even quadruple in some cases. There's a spreadsheet that's spreading around Los Angeles. I'm sure that you're familiar with it, where it's interesting to see, like, some of the price gouging is being tracked in real time in a way that almost everybody can see. Do you think that is going to do anything to quell it, or do you think that this is going to be something that regulators have to get involved?
Well, they are going to. The DRE is going to shut that down in a matter of give it another 2 or 3 days. I mean, I'm not participating in that list because I think it's disgusting. I think that these people are just ripping people off left and right. What I did is I went through 600 of my clients. I have a list that I've accumulated over the years, and I just literally said, I called each single one up and said, if this is your second home, would you lease it? Fair market value. The house is empty. You never use it. A secondary house. I need XYZ person for this property. So I have like a little black book of houses that I'm just, anyone who calls me that, needs something and is tired of like waiting in line, to pay triple. So that's what I've been doing. I've placed probably 10 people today in houses that were involved in the fires.
Dude, I am so sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry to blow up your phone after this, but I mean, when word gets out about that little black book, it's a perfect scenario. People that have second homes, that space should be used for people in this disaster. But I do want to ask you about
secondary homes
the
for
fires.
A lot of these are secondary homes because, for instance, I spend a lot of time in New York and a lot of time in LA. Like, I'm actually in New York right now, but a lot of my other friends that are in New York and LA are not using the LA homes because they really don't come to LA that often. So, I'm getting 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, even a year or even 2-year leases set. And so, I have like literally a list right here of like 30 people I'm putting in the next, 48 hours. Right. But then we go to insurance. That's the next issue. It was a nightmare to get insurance before this whole thing happened. I mean, it was just ridiculous. That's going to be the biggest challenge. How are people going to get insurance right now? I have 4 things in escrow at the moment that we have had to extend our contingency period because we can't get confirmation from the insurance companies if they will insure the house. And so that is the problem I'm facing right now. And then the more urgent problem is we have these people that want to rent houses and need renter's insurance. Well, that's more time sensitive. It's not an escrow. So now you can't. Now these people are renting houses and they need renter's insurance. So that's like challenge number 1. Then you're going to have challenge number 3, which is the contractors, because when people start to rebuild these houses, there's going to be an influx of contractors that are just going to be, pillaging these people, taking advantage of them because they can. What's this going to do for the real estate market? It's really hard to answer that question with a good conscience because I don't want to talk about, values and things when this is like such a depressing time. But if it's like the question that you want to know, what is my personal opinion? I think tragically, the market will go up from this because it's a simple matter of supply and demand. Interest rates are still high. There's 15,000 displaced people. A lot of them are not going to want to live in the Palisades again, or a lot of them are not going to want to live in Beverly Hills or in Malibu again. So they're going to go east of the 405 to places that don't generally have fires, like Brentwood, like Bel Air and Beverly Hills. And so the values there will go up. Well, probably the values in the Palisades will go down because it's like, who wants to drive home to your house in the Palisades? And you're like driving through Mars, like by the time you get to your house. It's just not, so a lot of people will rebuild, but it's going to take a long time for that market to catch back up again.
Yeah, Josh, I mean, look, it's something that we complain about here in LA a lot, that things were bad before this. Now it's just, there are really no words, but there's so much to dive into. We hope you'll join us again, because this is an issue that we're not going to let go. Josh Flagg, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. Thanks. And don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. Sam Brock is here with the other big headlines from today, including Pete Hegseth under the microscope, the grilling today on Capitol Hill as confirmation hearings for the Trump administration get underway. And later this hour, a bird's eye view of the devastation. You saw our Ellison Barber moments ago taking a ride with the team fighting these wildfires from the air. She's joining us with much more on what she saw, so stay tuned.
And welcome back. We're going to be returning to Gadi in just a second. But first, here are some of the headlines that we're watching around the world tonight and across the country. With less than a week to go before leaving the White House for the final time, President Biden is still making policy decisions. Today, removing Cuba from a list of state sponsors of terrorism. That is part of a wider deal expected to free political prisoners on the island. Though in a few days, the reality is the Trump administration could come in and just reverse that decision. New York's Governor Kathy Hochul says that she wants police officers on every overnight subway train in New York City. She's calling this a, quote, new safety plan slated to last for the next 6 months amidst a chorus of cries here in New York to protect subway riders. Here's the context. There has been a spate of horrible crimes recently, including a woman burned alive and a man shoved in front of a moving train. Yet NYPD says that major crime on the subway, major crime overall, is down 5% compared to this time last year. Special counsel Jack Smith's report is out, and it says that if President-elect Trump had not won the election in November, the Justice Department had plenty of evidence to convict him in the election interference case, which presumably is why Mr. Smith brought the case in the first place. Trump reacting to the report's release on social media by writing in all caps, "The voters have spoken." A consumer boost now to get to. If you have been spending years turning around food packages to check what's inside, you might not have to do that anymore. The FDA is proposing a new rule that would require a label on the front of packages. It would have all the basics like saturated fats, sodium, sugar amounts. Shoppers, though, will have to wait probably to see those new labels till about 2028. And Southern culinary guru Natalie Dupree died yesterday. She's best known for her show New Southern Cooking, which made her a household name across America. She wrote a number of cookbooks, too, with easy Southern cooking recipes. She was 85 years old. Well, breaking tonight, Elon Musk sued by the government for securities fraud. This over the billionaire's deal to buy Twitter. So let's go back in reverse here for a second. The SEC has been investigating Musk for allegedly keeping secret a 5% share in the company's stock before the deal was actually finalized, which would be against the law if true. According to the SEC, withholding that information saved Musk about $150 million. Musk's attorney called the lawsuit a sham and said that his client has done nothing wrong. Well, it was a big day today in Washington, a fiery confirmation hearing playing out on Capitol Hill. Pete Hegseth, President-elect Trump's pick to lead the Department of Defense, facing a tough line of questioning, with Democrats zeroing in on Hegseth's past comments about women in combat, an allegation of sexual assault, and reports of heavy drinking on the job. Here's a sample. Take a listen.
You said in your statement you don't want politics in the DOD. Everything you've said in these public statements is politics. I don't want women. I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way? Once you have babies, you therefore are no longer able to be lethal.
I assume you'd be willing to submit to an expanded FBI background check that interviews your colleagues, accountants, ex-wives, former spouses, sexual assault survivors, and others, and enable them to come forward.
Senator, I'm not in charge of FBI background checks. Will you resign as Secretary of Defense if you drink on the job, which is a 24/7 position?
I've made this commitment on behalf of
Will you
men and women
resign as Secretary of Defense
I've
if
made this
you
commitment
drink
on
on the
behalf
job?
of many of your work colleagues have said that you show up for work under the influence of alcohol or drunk. I know you've denied that, but you would agree with me, right, that if that was the case, that would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense.
Senator, those are all anonymous false claims, and the totality
they're not anonymous.
The letters on the record here.
They're not anonymous.
This hearing now seems to be a hearing about whether or not women are qualified to serve in combat, and not about whether or not you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And let me just say that the American people need a SecDef who's ready to lead on day one. You are not that person.
All right, that was just a snapshot of today's hearing. Let's bring in Julie Sirkin now from Capitol Hill. Julie, thanks for being with us. Under normal circumstances, and I emphasize normal, nomination hearings are a chance to hear a nominee's vision for the future, what they're going to want to do with their role in that department. But with so many questions swirling around Hegseth's qualifications and his personal backstory, did we get that from the hearing today?
Yeah, I like your emphasis on normal, because a source on the committee actually told me that in no other world, at least in the past 2 decades, have senators on this committee specifically been concerned about an FBI background check, not for Mark Esper under Trump, not for Lloyd Austin under Biden. And so certainly times are not normal. But look, for Hegseth's part, a lot of this hearing, especially from Democrats, had focused on those allegations that he has denied of sexual assault, of drinking, about his comments about women in combat, about his comments in general about women and different people in these military positions. And so not a lot of this did focus on his vision for the future and the department. But what Hegseth did make clear is that he wants an America First policy, and he wants to do what Trump wants him to do, which is this. Take a listen.
When President Trump chose me for this position, the primary charge he gave me was to bring the warrior culture back to the Department of Defense. He, like me, wants a Pentagon laser-focused on lethality, meritocracy, warfighting, accountability, and readiness.
And you heard some of those protesters in the background, 3 of which were thrown out during Hegseth's opening statement. That was part of his opening statement, right? And so it's very clear what he's looking to do at the department. It's just not clear if Democrats are on board with it.
And as it pertains to some of those personal questions, Julie, there was a good deal of deflection going on today as well. So what's the upshot here? Have we heard anything from Hegseth or from Republicans about how this went? And also, late tonight, Iowa Senator Joni Ernst weighing in, saying that she likely would support his nomination. So where does that leave things now?
Yeah, and Joni Ernst, to be clear, is the key to this entire thing. She sits on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Her vote is crucial for Hegseth to make it to that next step of a full vote before the full Senate. Ernst saying tonight in a statement, and I want to read you a part of it, that after her conversations with Hegseth, after hearing from Iowans, doing her job as a United States Senator, I will support President Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense. She also said, as she has had many meetings with him, that she holds him to his commitment of ensuring opportunity for women in combat while maintaining high standards and selecting a senior official to address and prevent sexual assault in the ranks. Ernst is a combat veteran. Ernst is also a sexual assault survivor. This is critical to her work here in her time in the Senate. She's done so much on this issue, and so that's why everybody was really looking to her on this. She says now she's a yes. That all but certainly guarantees that on Monday, when the committee votes on this hearing, as early as Monday, I should say, on his nomination, that Hegseth will make it to that full Senate for a full vote.
So we have that upcoming Hegseth vote. But, Julie, there are more hearings scheduled for this week. I guess the question becomes, like, how much can they pack in the next several days?
Well, this week started off with close to 15 nominees sitting before the relevant committees. A couple of them have dwindled. There's FBI files that aren't ready, certain paperwork that hasn't been submitted, but there are still some big names this week. Tomorrow, for example, I'm going to be watching Pam Bondi, who's Trump's pick for Attorney General. She'll be sitting before the Senate Judiciary Committee over the course of 2 days. Certainly that'll be something to watch, as well as Kristi Noem, who is Trump's pick to lead the Department of Homeland Security. These 2 women would have a very big role in this new Trump administration, just because of what he's looking to do with clearing out the DOJ, with fixing the border crisis, with overhauling our immigration system. So I'll be watching them from that perspective. Certainly someone like Tulsi Gabbard is going to come before the committee at another point, not this week. The Intelligence Committee will be someone I'm watching too. All
right. A very thorough breakdown there. Julie Sirkin from Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Well, the countdown is on right now to President-elect Trump's second inauguration, just 6 days away now. So what can we expect to see, and who can we expect to see for round two? Typically, viewers and attendees would see a wide array of elected officials, former presidents, and their wives up on the Capitol dais. But this year, noticeably absent will be former First Lady Michelle Obama. Her husband, former President Barack Obama, as well as the Clintons and the Bushes, will all attend. Meantime, giants from the tech world, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg, will all be there sitting alongside Trump's cabinet nominees. And if the pomp and circumstance isn't your thing, American Idol champ Carrie Underwood is going to be taking the stage to sing America the Beautiful before Trump takes the oath of office. While the Village People of YMCA fame, surely you've heard of them, are slated to perform at one of Trump's inaugural balls. And you can watch coverage of the inauguration of Donald Trump starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Monday on NBC and NBC News Now. Staying on Capitol Hill here, the fate of TikTok is still really anybody's guess. The social media giant has just a few more days to divest from ByteDance or risk being banned in the U.S. If it does disappear from the App Store in the coming days, what's going to happen to the truckload of content that's been created over the last few years? And which app, more importantly, will the legions of TikTok devotees turn to next? NBC's Savannah Sellers explains.
But China's stealing your data. I don't care.
Yo, I literally feel like I'm saying goodbye to my favorite auntie.
The future of TikTok hanging in the balance right now as the Supreme Court appears likely to greenlight a new law that will ban the app over national security concerns that China can manipulate content or see American user data.
Schumer and Gillibrand will certainly be hearing from me regarding the potential ban of TikTok. I think that's absolutely ridiculous.
A big question right now, what happens to all the viral content capturing American culture and the very real digital footprint of this time in history if this ban moves forward? TikTok has not replied to our request for comment on this.
Looking at the culture of the early 2020s on the internet, so much of that was stored on TikTok, to the point where if it were to go away overnight, it would be like the burning of the Library of Alexandria for this moment in time on social media.
Okay, I'm bored in the house and I'm in the house bored.
Y'all better come up here and get one of these.
The super popular moments over the COVID-19 pandemic.
Jesus was seen.
Where, Rachel?
Oh my God.
Show me to me, please.
I really like cones.
Very demure, very mindful. I don't come to work with a green cut crease.
And countless trends.
Hey, Senator, what season is it? It's Brat Summer at the DNC. Woo!
The app so popular, politicians, public figures, news organizations all joining in.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
President Trump! Well, that's a good-looking group. Hello, everybody.
Another unknown right now, where will the millions of TikTok creators and users go next? With some people already posting tributes to the app ahead of its possible end in the U.S.
And when I started sharing some of the things that I've been through or experiencing and being ADHD and autistic, I gained a lot of community, a lot of people who wanted to hear more about that, a lot of people who wanted to share their own stories. I don't think there's another app out there that people are willing to be vulnerable on like that. I have not seen that on Instagram or Facebook.
Right now, other apps like Red Note and Lemon8 topping Apple's App Store.
There are so many friendly people and it's beautiful.
And platforms like Instagram and YouTube with Reels and Shorts have millions of their own active users already. The only other country with a complete TikTok ban, India.
There are tons of TikTok alternatives that are reaching the top of the App Store that people are rushing to download. But the core mass of people, the critical mass of that user base, is likely going to end up using the products made by Meta and made by YouTube.
NBC News has reached out to YouTube, which has no comment on the possible TikTok ban. Meta points NBC News to an interview its chief global affairs officer did on Fox, where he said this.
We like competition. We think it makes us better. We're going to stay focused on what we're doing and how we make our platform as open and welcoming a place as possible for all points of view.
And more of those points of view may be migrating from TikTok soon. Savannah Sellers, NBC News.
All right, hard to imagine a world without TikTok. Savannah, thank you so much. Coming up next, Princess Kate sharing an update about her cancer battle. That and other headlines just ahead in Around the World. But first, you got to see this to believe it. Dangerous situation on aisle 5. That being tugged outside of dairy or whatever that is there is a coyote. That is from a Chicago supermarket cooler. animal care and control officers say they have absolutely no idea how the coyote got in there. It took them a couple of minutes to pull it out, but they got a call yesterday morning to rush over to the local grocery store. Apparently the coyote is doing okay. They say it's safe. The animal is not hurt. No one else was hurt. The plan is to release the coyote back into the wild where it belongs after it gets a clean bill of health. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world, shall we? Ukraine appears to be taking the fight to Russia now after launching what officials there are calling massive drone attacks overnight. Russia's defense ministry says the strikes happened in the southwestern portion of the country and promising that, quote, these actions on Kyiv will not go unanswered. In South Africa, 100 men have died inside an abandoned gold mine. This, according to officials on the ground there yesterday, who also say at least 500 other men are still trapped inside. It appears the men who died did so from starvation and dehydration as they were trapped underground for months. Officials say police also cut off the miners' food supplies in an attempt to flush them out. 1 million people in Haiti have been forced from their homes due to a rise in gang violence. That is the sobering assessment coming from the UN's migration agency today. They're calling it a humanitarian crisis, clearly, that is only being exacerbated by a failing healthcare system and worsening food insecurity in that country. And today, Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales, announcing that her cancer is in remission. It's been 4 months since her final chemotherapy treatment. In fact, she visited the hospital where that treatment first took place, thanking the medical teams there, giving out hugs. The princess revealing that she had cancer last March, less than a month after King Charles also said that he was diagnosed with cancer. Breaking tonight in South Korea, a standoff at the presidential residence in Seoul as police there facing off with President Yoon Suk-yeol's personal security for the second time this month. Government investigators were blocked by bodyguards from detaining the president, who's been wanted for questioning over a botched declaration of martial law. This was last month. This now marks the second time that police have tried arresting the president over possible charges of insurrection. Yoon has already been impeached over that decision, but his lawyers are calling the arrest warrants, quote, illegal. Over in the Middle East, negotiators now saying that Israel and Hamas are the closest that they have ever been to a ceasefire deal, which could end the 15-month-long war in Gaza and secure the freedom of the roughly 100 hostages held by Hamas, though the details are exceedingly delicate at this point. NBC's Danielle Hamamjian has more.
Well, a senior Israeli official tells NBC News that there has never been such detailed negotiations and that it is now in the hands of Hamas. And the group has said in the past 24 hours that they are keen for this deal to go ahead. So we await their official response. In the meantime, what we can tell you is that the deal will unfold over the first stage over a 42-day period, during which time 33 hostages will be released on humanitarian grounds. They include women, children, people over the age of 50, the ill, injured. There is belief, the majority are believed to be alive, though Israel has said that they have no evidence of that just yet. In return, hundreds and hundreds, we are told, of Palestinian detainees will be released. The more high-profile one, serving longer sentences, possibly life sentences, will have to live in exile in a third country, not be sent back to either Gaza or the West Bank. How many exactly will be released? That, officials say, will depend on the number of hostages who come back alive. Now, officials have also said that they know that there is a big price to pay for the hostages, especially the female soldiers, and they are willing to pay that price. Now, during this period, the IDF will withdraw from the densely populated areas into a buffer zone along the border. They'll keep control of the Philadelphia corridor, which is this strip of land between Egypt and Gaza. At the second stage, that's 16 days after the first stage is complete, we'll see the release of the remaining hostages. They include the male soldiers, those who have been killed in captivity or on October 7th, 2023. But the IDF is clear they will not withdraw from the Gaza Strip until all 98 hostages are back here in Israel. Now, this does not have so far unanimous support. The National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, today said that he opposes it. In fact, he admitted to preventing a hostage deal on numerous occasions in the past, something that will surely infuriate the family members of the hostages. But even without his support, Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to have enough support in his cabinet for this deal to go ahead.
All right, we'll see what happens here. Danielle, thank you so much. And as you just outlined there, a hostage and ceasefire deal could literally be announced at any moment. With these developments coming just days before the presidential transition, there's new hope and also similar parallels to another hostage crisis more than 40 years ago. NBC's Andrea Mitchell has more.
In November of 1979, militant students stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, angered over U.S. support for the country's ousted leader, the Shah. Dozens of hostages taken, kicking off a crisis that would go on to destroy U.S.-Iranian relations, challenge an American presidency, and leave families in constant fear their loved ones would never make it out alive.
My prayers are still with them.
The hostage crisis transfixed the world, watching it play out night after night on national television.
The hostages suspected by the Iranians of spying may be held elsewhere.
Some of the hostages, women, children, and minorities, freed quickly by Iran's new leader, the Ayatollah, who took control of the hostage situation. Other Americans, including diplomats, rescued in a daring CIA-led operation, dramatized in the 2012 Best Picture winner, Argo.
White House wants the 6 of them out.
But 52 hostages remained in the hands of their captors, awaiting a deal from the highest levels of the American government, a deal that proved elusive for President Jimmy Carter, who had approved cancer treatment in the U.S. for the Shah, enraging so many Iranians. The crisis becoming one of the defining issues of Carter's presidency.
That we will persist in our efforts through every means available until every single American has been freed.
With Carter taking steps, including a disastrous rescue operation that killed 8 U.S. service members to try and free the hostages.
I want to express the admiration I feel for the courage of their loved ones.
With inflation and gas prices sky high and Americans still being held in Iran, President Carter stood little chance of winning a second term, losing in a landslide to former California Governor Ronald Reagan in 1980.
We have projected Ronald Reagan the winner.
While the crisis helped to sink Carter's political fortunes, it became one of his successor's crowning achievements.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear.
On Inauguration Day, the U.S. government released nearly $8 billion in frozen Iranian assets, allowing Ronald Reagan, just minutes into his presidency and 444 days into the hostage situation, to secure the release of the 52 Americans in captivity.
You are home, and believe me, you are welcome.
Now just days away from another inauguration, we await news of a new hostage deal in Gaza, a commitment to surge aid into the destroyed Gaza Strip, and an end to hostility that continues to plague the Middle East and much of the world. For President Biden, it would be one last hallmark achievement before he leaves office.
We're working urgently to close this deal.
For President-elect Trump, a deal would kick off a second term, doing something his predecessor couldn't.
If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out.
With lives and legacies on the line, the coming days could be critical for 2 American presidents, and most importantly, for the hostages and their families.
There are a couple of important differences between these events. This time, the Trump and Biden teams have been working together to free the hostages. Last time, the Reagan team worked secretly to delay the hostages' release until Jimmy Carter was out of office. And tragically, this time, not all the hostages have survived.
Yeah, some very sobering news there about that. Andrea, thank you so much for that report. We'll have much more to come tonight. We're also going to be heading back to see Gadi in Altadena in just a moment. We're going to be talking, to our Ellison Barber about her ride along with CAL FIRE high above the fire zone. Stay tuned.
Hey, welcome back. And here are some of the stories that are happening out in the West that we're following right now. Out in Arizona, the FAA is investigating how 2 planes almost crashed over the weekend. Now, a Delta and a United Airlines flight were both getting ready to land at the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport when the FAA says they had a, quote, loss of required separation. Now, United says its pilots acted immediately to avoid the crash. Both planes landed safely. And in a win for Hawaii, the U.S. Supreme Court is allowing the state's lawsuit against some oil companies over climate change to continue. Now, the court passed on multiple appeals filed by the companies like Sunoco and Shell, and Hawaii is seeking billions of dollars from 15 oil and gas companies for their role in climate change, claiming that they misled the public about the dangers of fossil fuels. And in Alaska, a baby bald eagle has flown the coop. Officers in Fairbanks, Alaska, found the bird frozen and unable to fly, and they took that eagle under their wing and warmed it up in their patrol car. The bird stayed overnight at the station to defrost and to eat up a little bit, and that seemed to do the trick because now he is back in the wild. We're back here on the ground in Southern California at the Altadena fire. The wind is picking up with red flag warnings in effect overnight for much of Los Angeles and Ventura counties. It's not too bad right now, but it is definitely making a lot of people nervous. But throughout the day, air attack on the fire was still flying. It's still flying tonight. And Ellison Barber tagged along with CAL FIRE as they worked on hotspots and shored up defenses for what could be a very long night.
Tonight, CAL FIRE taking us up in one of their helicopters, giving us a first-hand look at the massive, coordinated effort to battle the Los Angeles wildfires.
Air efforts are a critical part of this firefight, and you see it here. Teams are attacking these fires and hotspots like this one from the air every chance they get.
From the air, the scope of the devastation is staggering. Nearly 40,000 acres burned, entire neighborhoods leveled.
Were these houses? Was this a neighborhood?
Yes, it was.
Wow. It looks like a war zone. You can see the scale of the damage from above, and then when you look down, you can also see teams fighting hotspots that have popped up in this area. All of them up on that ridge there, moving towards that hotspot to try and get it under control.
Choppers like this are key assets in the arsenal of equipment deployed to fight the Palisades and Eaton fires. They can scoop and drop water, but can also be used to transport firefighters and equipment and look for flare-ups. CAL FIRE has its own fleet of aircrafts operating from 11 helicopter bases across the state that can reach most fires in about 20 minutes.
Hey, we have a small window with the wind driving in this direction.
Operations Section Chief Christian Litz has been leading the coordinated effort to tame the blaze, working around the clock. The father of 4 has barely seen his family. He's been home once since the fires broke out, at night and for a couple of hours, just to pick up clothes.
My wife takes care of everything. I don't have to worry about any of my house. She's a very strong woman, and a lot of our significant others have to be very strong. The only reason why firefighters can do what they do is because of the family that we have back at home.
He tells us his oldest son is a new firefighter. He's part of a hand crew. As Litz fights the fires from the sky, his son is fighting them on the ground.
These teams have flown countless missions in hurricane-force winds at times. They didn't give up then. They've done this since these fires began, and they say they have no plans to stop now.
Forecasters expect red flag conditions to last through Wednesday.
Are your teams ready if new fires do develop from these winds?
Absolutely. Absolutely, we're ready.
And for Litz, it is personal.
This fight for y'all, it is personal.
Very personal. I live in LA County. I am an LA County firefighter, and I take it very personal every fight that we go to because it could be my house. It could be my family that's affected.
And his son down there on the fire lines. Incredible story. Ellison joins us now from Malibu. Ellison, you know, we've been touring this devastation from the roads, and the scope is pretty staggering, but you saw it from the air. How do you describe what you saw?
You know, you think that you've seen so much of it when you're driving through these areas on the ground that it is already so hard to wrap your brain and your head around the destruction. When you see it from the sky, it's that times 2. I mean, these are entire communities just completely wiped off of the map. The amount of devastation is really staggering. And everywhere you looked, it seems like it was just chimney after chimney after chimney and just rubble all around it. You know, Gadi, you're from LA, you live in California. I don't live here. So when I'm flying up there and looking at some of it, I am in some pockets saying, was that green before? And I was shocked at how far this burn scar goes, because there were some pockets where looking at it, I would think surely maybe that just didn't have grass before, but it did. All of it impacted by the fires. And when you look at where people lived, that's where you just really see the massive amount of devastation and just everything we were hovering over, particularly in the Palisades, it is all gone. There is nothing there for the most part, except for a few random houses still standing here and there, and just chimney after chimney amidst all of the rubble. Gadi.
Yeah, it's so hard. I've seen some of the images, and you spend so much time trying to orient yourself to places that you've been so many times because it just does not look at all recognizable. Tonight is going to be another touch and go night. What is the threshold for flying tonight for both fixed air assets and then the fixed wings and the helicopters?
Right. I mean, it's a good question because they, like fire engines and patrols, are pre-positioned, particularly in unimpacted high fire risk areas to launch if they need to in the overnight hours. But ultimately, what they were telling us is it is a minute-by-minute decision, and it really all comes down to those winds. They say the level they're looking at is if there is a big gap between sustained winds and wind gusts, that's when they won't be able to fly. If you're seeing wind gusts that are 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, those planes can't take off for two reasons. One, it's too dangerous to fly. And also, they say it would be ineffective because the winds would make it nearly impossible for them to hit their targets with water and flame retardant. Gadi?
Allison Barber, thank you so much for that reporting. I'll be thinking about that father and that son on the ground and in the sky next time I see one of those helicopters. Allison, thank you. And updating some breaking news in South Korea. Sam was just telling you about this. Investigators have just arrested President Yoon Suk-yeol at the presidential residence in Seoul. This ends a standoff between the government investigators and the president's bodyguards. They've previously blocked the arrest from happening. Now, Yoon has been wanted for questioning over that botched declaration of martial law that we saw unfold right here on our show live. Before we go, the effort to preserve history here in Altadena, how the community is making sure that doesn't disappear after so much was already taken by these flames. That's coming up after the break. And finally tonight here in Altadena, people who call this home are making sure the community's proud legacy is not erased in the ashes. Take a look.
As the history of Altadena is forever changed by fire, its character is being sketched by an artist left without a home.
When you look at Altadena, what do you see?
Well, as I was saying, I see the devastation, and that breaks my heart. But I can, just in my imagination, I can see this place returning.
For more than a half a century, Altadena has been a beacon of light on a hill. One of the first places in the 60s to welcome black and brown families. Today, black ownership is 80% here. It's the kind of place you find people like Walt Butler, who spent his blessed life giving away money to lose everything he had at the age of 83.
What does the community of Altadena mean to you?
Everything. See, Altadena, the people in Altadena, they're just like one giant family.
Are you going to rebuild your house? Are you going to stay here in Altadena?
Most likely, yes, because I like Altadena and I like the people.
The community coming together, raising over $800,000. And his first thought, a food truck so he can give right back.
You're getting a food truck.
It's going to be funky.
At a bookstore called Octavia's Bookshelf.
In the back are where you're going to find masks.
Today, there's no room for books, only donations.
So there's no more books, but we have shampoo here. We've just become this hub where people can come and get what they need.
The store is named for Altadena's famed science fiction writer Octavia Butler. Decades ago, she wrote Parable of the Sower about a girl in the year 2025 facing an apocalyptic fire fueled by climate change. One passage now going viral. As wind, as water, as fire, as life, God is both creative and destructive, demanding and yielding, sculptor and clay. God is infinite potential. God is change.
You guys are the seeds of change.
We hope so. Yeah, we hope so. Their wealth was in their house, and now their house is gone. And so it requires community support. It requires resources to be able to rebuild again and to reestablish their family legacy where they were.
So life hasn't been bad, you know?
Life hasn't been bad even with this?
No, I mean, because I know I'm going to bounce back.
Some perspective there. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. A quick note before we go. At 8 o'clock tomorrow night, President Joe Biden will deliver his farewell address. You can watch it here on NBC News Now. Thanks for watching. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.